The Fever Dream of the Maltese Falcon, a Taipei Noir, year 2080, Episode 3. The sunrise broke early in the city of just over 25 million, with 24 million of them residing in the downside. The temperature was considerably low at 34 degrees, but some still struggled to keep their masks on. Even though the legislation had been passed to enforce mandatory masking, the citizenry would still wig out at times and attempt their day sans masks. Caught upsiders, which was basically an oxymoron, would get a slap on the wrist, whereas downsiders could face the death penalty, which the imperialist had cruelly reinstated a decade after the virus had become a mainstay of daily life. The environment be damned. Air conditioners that morning buzzed and prepared for 45-plus spikes in the boiling afternoon sun. Humidity, 97%. 302,283 reported infections. 10,580 deaths. Lummix knew a time would come when she would become the center of an investigation. She didn't figure it would be her own. After a close call with Chung Ho, she knew it would only be a matter of time before he caught up with her again. Luther was toast, there was no doubt about that, and she was being played as the patsy, an unenviable position to be put in, especially when she was the one known as the patsy maker. The kid seemed legit, but in her eyes, so did anyone else who was able to bring enough imperialist notes to the table, and that was her weakness. Mei-ling was another story. An overly attractive woman who looked too done up for Telehelo, but evidently never went out. That was not a combination that could be trusted. Lummix needed her regular steaming cup of legitimate jade tea, which was green tea grown from the restricted Jade Mountain region. Mr. Wu was the only remaining local from the old days in the upside who still had a connection in the downside, who knew a guy, and that guy grew the stuff, the real stuff. Sure, lots of shops purported to sell LJ, as it was called, and maybe, just maybe, it was from the base of the mountain, but that didn't matter. It was still not up to par, only distilling sour notes that would send an imperialist crying home to his mama. "Give me a steamin' LJ, Wu," Lummix demanded with heartfelt affection. "You bet," Mr. Wu shot back through his mask, as he did for the past 20 years whenever Lummix entered his shop. Lummix was getting the tea because it helped her think, and because, as luck would have it, by the grace of a god that technically no longer existed, according to Amendment 412 of the Imperialist Constitution, the tea would help make a magical connection. Of course, Lummix didn't believe in any of this, but she also knew that in a case like this, 6 to 8 hours would pass before anyone would reach out, and she wanted to be comfortable when the time came. Sure enough, at the 7.5-hour mark, an incoming Telehelo. It was an unlisted number. The imperialist controlled cell numbers, and unlisted wasn't an affordable option, so she knew this was important. "Lummix here," she said as she pulled down her mask. The video wavered on. It was Mei-ling. She was all dolled up, putting on finishing touches of lipstick when the video became clear. Why the lipstick, Lummix wondered, remembering in her youth when red gloss was only good for ruining clothes or whatever else she may have accidentally let her lips come in contact with. Thank God you answered, Mei-ling choked into the camera. I need your help. Yeah, I could tell, Lummix pushed back, not revealing any weaknesses. I had no idea about Luther, Mei-ling sobbed. I didn't know he was a target. Am I in danger now? In the imperialist nation, the police did nothing except hunt for credits. That's all they were good for, and they would turn anybody in for a few measly points. Quit your sobbing, Buttercup. Yeah, you're in danger, Lummix barked. Mei-ling wiped some tears from her glossy complexion. I'm sorry. Don't be, but don't make your problem more of mine than you have to. Mei-ling took a deep breath. I admit it. I sent the kid to you, but I didn't think Luther would be dead, she protested. I know it was a terrible idea, but I was desperate. And she broke into tears again. Take it easy, Lummix reassured. I think you and I should meet up for a hot LJ and talk this over. I can't, she responded. You'll have to, Lummix insisted. No way. They'll skin me alive, Mei-ling stood firm. Who's they? Lummix shot back. I can't tell you that right now, was Mei-ling's feeble reply. You want me to skin you alive? Lummix occasionally lost it. This was one of those times. Lummix rubbed her eyes, tired of this interaction. I feel like you're baiting me. Don't bait me. It wouldn't be pleasant. She was tired of the new generation hiding behind all their tech. With the advancements of AI, like Xiaohua, anything was possible. And now there was a new problem. Who killed Luther? And who would protect Mei-ling and the kid? Lummix now knew Mei-ling wouldn't come out of hiding, but she wouldn't be doing her job if she didn't at least try, or better yet, coerce. No dice. Not surprisingly, Mei-ling was safer holed up in wherever the hell she was than meeting in an undisclosed location, whatever that meant. Breaking the upside-downside firewall was a piece of cake if you knew the right people, and obviously Mei-ling did, so her location was out of reach, and she was better off staying put. Lummix couldn't blame her for that. If it weren't for the need to make a living and earn some bucks, Lummix would be the first to hole up and escape the reality of the sides, as locals knew them. But there was still the issue of the kid. It was only yesterday that this odd little man-child made his way into her office and simultaneously plucked her heartstrings and put her on high alert. Lummix was more on the alert side of things, but she couldn't deny that being in the presence of a young, bona fide, unjaded citizen was a breath of fresh Taidong air, assuming it would remain in the post-neutral zone, that was. But you've got to take the kid in. You've just got to, Mei-ling pushed. I don't got to do anything, Lummix pushed back. That kid has no one. He's virtually barefoot in Wanhua, living in the old buried alleyways and abandoned MRT trenches of Ximending, feeding off of discarded pao mian and soured chou tofu. The kid did, in fact, have no one except for Lummix. If citizens were unfortunate enough to lose their paperwork in a paperless society or have it stolen, which was usually the case, there was nothing that could be done. Lummix couldn't take him back to her place, that was for sure. She never mixed her private detective work with her actual private life. She would set him up in an out-of-the-way holdup, not quite a safe house. Those were too expensive for this, but safe enough from prying eyes and online sleuths. Madame Wong was of the old school. Lummix could trust her, but at a price. In new Old Taipei, everything had a price, and nothing was free. In fact, without a price, it absolutely could not be trusted. Her price was not low, but it was fair. Ultimately, it didn't matter because the kid, or Mei-ling, would be paying for it anyway. Detective rule number 2. Pay for nothing. Madame Wong only housed reprobates in her complex, and her setup ensured she was the only one privy to this fact. Lummix knew it, but only because she and Wong went way back to the early days of running an adulterer-busting detective agency. Men were sleazy, and there was a profit to be made, plain and simple. That angle became moot once the imperialists realized it benefited them more to let everyone run wild like horny savages than to try to tame the lower classes. "Hey, babe," Lummix muttered. Wong was the only one who ever got the pet name treatment, but truth be told, Babe was her code name during smut busts. "I need a place on pretty short notice. Like right now," Wong knew Lummix's style. "You know it." "Well, just your luck, another death from the virus has opened up the penthouse," Wong said. "How ripe is it?" "Quit your worrying. I had it sprayed down, disinfected, and deloused," Wong declared. "But there still might be a bit of a smell." "How bad?" Lummix inquired. "No worse than that flat you used to live in," Wong bounced back. "I still live in it." The kid was placed in the penthouse, not as fancy as it sounded, but more of an add-on pod to an already decrepit building suffering from the side effects of frequent earthquakes and relentless humidity. "I don't have any money for this," the kid admitted, but Lummix always had a way of extracting her fee. She had a quick eye for detail. "You're wearing one of those retinol recorders, aren't you?" In an instant, Lummix moved her palm along his eye line, right up to his face, almost as if she were going to pop him in the socket. But she knew those contact lenses couldn't compensate for the light change rapidly enough and would cause the user to experience a wincing flash of light. The kid wailed as he cupped his eyes. "You must have saved up a lot of footage over the years," she concluded. "I can't imagine what you've been privy to, but upload some of it to the market and get me what's mine. If I find anything pertaining remotely to me, I'll throw you to the Wolf of Wanhua, who will cut out your kidney and sell it in a heartbeat." Of course the wolves weren't real animals. Rather, they were a group of nomads that had their own racket going that primarily involved stripping the weak and poor of half-used bottles of mouthwash or open packages of wet naps before shipping them off for organ harvesting. It was a piecemeal operation, to be sure, but it paid. The kid gulped, and she knew she had him. Giving him privacy to realize his own fate, Lummix left the pod. In 2080, you were doomed if you couldn't handle tech, and so hiring someone, anyone, was a must. Xiaohua had never let Lummix down in the past, and she wasn't expecting her to falter now, since, with recent upgrades, she was only getting better. On off days, Xiaohua only contacted Lummix twice a day. Once in the morning and once in the late afternoon, so she was expecting a Telehelo, but not expecting what she was about to learn. Mei-ling, as it turned out, was a deep fake. Subscribe to Taipei Noir on Spotify, Apple, and Google, or wherever you get your podcast, and please share with friends. Taipei Noir is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives 4.0 International License, which means share it with your friends, but don't use it in your own work and don't sell it. See you on the downside.